Beginner Laser Project 15. We're going to make this here Easter basket. I know it looks extremely complex, but it's a lot easier than you think it is. I'm going to take you through this, everything step by step, coming up. I'm Roger, welcome to the shop, and this is Beginner Laser Project number 15. It's getting close to Easter, and what do kids like? Easter eggs, Easter baskets. This is something you can make for either your own young'uns or your grand young'uns or your great grand young'uns, depending on how old you are. If you're old like me, you got a great grandchild to take care of. So, this design is not mine. This was, I actually purchased this design from designbundles.net, not sponsored by them. And I'll put a link in the description of which file this is to download. One of the things you will need is 3mm plywood. And you can get that at Dollar Tree. These planks and shapes they have. And there are enough different shapes there you can get all but one component of this, and that is the handle. They don't have anything at Dollar Tree that is big enough to cut this handle out of. So therefore you will need a larger piece of 3mm thick plywood, whether you get it at a craft store, which is usually overpriced, or do this here like you see behind me. There's two sheets of 3mm plywood there. Actually they call it 1/8 inch or nominal 1/8 inch. And it ranges in thickness anywhere from 2.8 to 3.2 millimeters, depending on where you measure on the sheet. So it's not perfect, but there aren't too many places I can get this kind of stuff. As much as I despise this place here, I did have to break down and go to the Home Depot because that's the only place to stock this. My next choice would have been Lowe's, but the Lowe's store that had it in stock was 70 miles away one way, and I didn't want to make that trip. So I broke down and went to the old Home Depot and grabbed a couple sheets of this. So I will need to cut that down to make a small square to cut this handle out of, but the rest of it you can make out of these types of shapes. There's like a shamrock shape I'll cut the bottom out of. I'll do the sides out of these planks. So that part's pretty simple. Now, what's this filled with? The wife did this. A little bit of that fake Easter grass and then some kind of nifty little eggs she found somewhere. So I'll take you on the computer here. I'm going to show you what you're going to need to do to break this file down, because when you first import it as a DXF into Lightburn, it's going to be way bigger than your work area unless you've got a really big laser and a big sheet of material to work with. So I'll show you on the computer here how to break that down. Yeah, we'll start out here in Lightburn. I've got this set up. I'm going to be using the Jiccoda L1 for this project. So after you download the file from Design Bundles, it will look like this. Easter Basket Laser Cut File 408. Unzip that. We want to import the SVG, or you could do the DXF, either one. And that is not exactly a color we want to try to look at. So we'll just change all this to black. Now, if your project, if you have a piece of wood large enough to put on the bed, you could cut this all at once, just like it is. If not, you will need to separate these components by highlighting them, and you can pull them off to the side and sort them as you wish. It'll get a little tricky when you get up here around the handle, but it can be done with some patience. I also want to point out here that if you are importing the DXF rather than the SVG, the basket will be larger. And I'll show you what I mean here. I will import this as the DXF. And as you can see, it's larger than the workspace. And it makes a larger basket, and that is the one I used. I just simply separated these components and stuck them into an art library. And again, you can do that by highlighting. Oop, I grabbed too much there. moving them off to the side, and you can separate those if you wish. I do suggest that you group those so that if you try to move another component or move one of the components, you don't move the slots. So I would take this one here, put him up separate. These two pieces here are actually identical. And since I cut those together side by side, I'll just put that up here, group it, and I actually cut them horizontal like this. So I'll save that over there, or get that out of the way. Now here this gets a little tricky because this kind of overlaps, and it's hard to get the components out of there without messing something up. But it can be done if you're patient. So as you can see here, I grabbed this, I got a little bit of that butterfly up there. So what I did before, so I just moved this over here, I took this and I put it back where it came from. I'll take this here and I'll group it so that it stays together. I'll just smooth that out of the way. Then you would repeat the same thing for the top here, and you'll catch the corner of the butterfly, but you can put the graphic spec in there real easy. So what are we doing for speeds here on this Jiccoda for what I'm cutting? It will be 300 millimeters per minute at 90% power in 2 passes. It will cut it in 1 pass. However, if you get an odd place in the wood, as I will mention again here, you'll be messing around with this X-Acto knife, you'll get some splintering, and you'll just be frustrated. So better to take the extra few minutes and let it run that 2nd pass. Now we'll get back to the project. Okay, so that's how you break it down into pieces. And it's good to, after you do break it down, is create yourself an art library and move those pieces into the art library so you can move them back out as you need them, or move them off of your workspace. And again, make sure you group those so that when you go to move them, you're not just moving little pieces. It was a little bit of a hassle to get it all separated, but we got it. So one of the things you want to do with your pieces of wood is to measure them. And the reason I say this is because not everything is the same. So this is actually measuring 3.5. This is what I'm going to use for the bottom. So I may need to sand the tabs just a little bit to get them to fit in and have everything fit good together. And these will vary. There's 3.1. There's 3.7. And on the plank piece here, this is 3.2. This is what I'm going to be using for cut the sides. So it 3.5, you know, even on these big sheets, it varies in there, but you definitely want to measure and make sure that you don't have like 4 millimeter plus, because some of these I have are 4 millimeter. So now there it's 3.1. So depends where you measure. The other thing you're going to want to do is to make sure you remove the string, remove the sticker. So I'll get this all prepped up, and we'll get this laid out on here. If you're using one of these shamrock shapes, which is what I'm going to be using here for the bottom, here's one I already cut a bottom out of. As you can see, it just barely fits. So you definitely want to place this carefully and then frame it before you make your cut. If you set your framing speed down to a slow speed here, you're able to watch this carefully so you won't run off the work. Like it would right there, it would have run off. So I can just scooch this a little bit, and I can watch all my edges. I have my laser beam on very low power, 2%, so I can watch that beam to see where exactly that's going to cut. Make sure we stay on the workpiece. Now I'll do this one more time since I made that little move just to make sure. So we're all good to go now. Okay, my speed on this and power is 300 millimeters per minute and 90% power with 2 passes. This is for a 10 watt laser. I'm using the Jiccoda L1 for this project. And of course, I'm focused, so we have the focus set and everything correctly. Let's hit start. This does more or less cut this in one pass. However, plywood can be a little finicky. You'll get maybe something strange in the inner ply, or you'll get maybe some strange grain, and it may not cut through all the way. Then you'll end up with some splintering when you go to pop it out, or you may be having to sit there with an X-Acto knife for quite a while and try to cut the little pieces out. So I always do the second pass. It's kind of a insurance thing. Okay, if everything goes right, that piece should drop right out of there just like that. The next piece I'm going to be cutting are the sides for the base, and this is from a previous one. So I can get one side of the basket itself and then the two little side pieces out of one of these little planks. So I'll get one of these set up in here and I'll get that file loaded. Again, I'm framing this because this is a kind of a close cut. As you place the second half of that piece in, if you're using this type of wood from Dollar Tree, you'll need to frame it carefully because there's not a whole lot of waste on the top and bottom. This just barely fits in there on the width of this board, or height, or whatever dimension you want to call that. And here again, we're using the same settings, 300 millimeters per minute, 90% power. And for the most part, it does cut it on one pass, but I always do that second pass to make sure I don't have any little weird grains or whiskers or something holding me up on the back. Especially when you have something with a lot of fine detail like this. I am using a honeycomb board, and I am using air assist with this. The advantages, if you're new to this, is a honeycomb board will reduce the scorching on the back. An air assist will pretty much eliminate the scorching on the front. Plus it helps to keep that kerf cleared, and it also helps keep your lens clean. If you do not have air assist, that's fine, this still works. Just remember to check your lens occasionally and clean it with a microfiber cloth or a lens tissue designed for fine optics like cameras. Okay, I got one of my sides are done here, so we'll get the scrap out of the way. Lift this out, make sure all the little pieces are out of it. There again, when you're using air assist in a honeycomb board, you won't have any scorching. Or if you do, it'll be very, very little. A little tiny bit right there, but otherwise looks good. So, and make sure you clean your honeycomb board off. My next cut here, I want to make the best use of materials. So I'm going to be cutting a side and the handle out of this 12-inch square I cut out of a full sheet. So I'll get that here all centered, and we'll do a little framing here. There again, if you have your framing speed set slow, you can make any little minor adjustments you need to make as it's framing. And don't put your arm on the emergency stop like I just did. Start over. Here again, I'm going to be cutting the handle and the other side out of this piece here. I have turned the side sideways here, as you'll see later on. Okay, we're looking good. We'll get that started. This is going to take a while. There's a lot of cuts here to make. It's going to take 56 minutes to cut this one. Okay, here's our final two pieces. We'll cut out of one sheet here. Take the scrap off. There's our handle. And here's the other side. So we'll get this here put together. If you have anything that maybe didn't drop out, you may have to poke out a little bit. There we go. All right, everything looks good there. One interesting thing about this sheets of plywood I bought here is one side's got this kind of finish on it. The other side's got this kind of finish on it, which is kind of cool, I guess. Be nice if they were both the same, but won't matter for what we're doing here. Okay, so got all the pieces cut out, some assembly required. If you are going to paint this, let's say you were going to paint the bottom here one color and maybe the side a different color, paint your parts before you glue them together. Don't try to do it afterwards, especially with all this fine work. If you're going to paint the whole thing one color, you could either paint it ahead of time, or you could paint it after it's assembled. Either way, if you're doing it after it's assembled, I suggest use an airbrush or something like that. That's what I would do, but I'm not going to paint these. I'm going to leave them as they are. So, what am I going to use to assemble this? You can use regular wood glue. Nothing wrong with that. I'm going to be using CA glue and accelerator so I could get this done quick. So I'll get you in close here. I'll show you how this all goes together. It's actually pretty easy. Yeah, I have this just sort of slipped together just to show you how the pieces go. There's on the ends, there's a little slot that goes down. Otherwise, these don't fit together correctly against the bottom. So to put this together, do a little test fit first, and if your pieces absolutely will not go in, you can sand these tabs a little bit, which I have done with this bottom because it was slightly thicker than 3mm. So the way I do these, there's a couple different ways you could do it. You could put it together and then run a little bit of bead of CA glue down there, hit it with accelerator, or you can apply a small bead of glue in here. You can put your piece together, and if you want it to set up very quickly, make sure you're vertical and just give it a little squirt of accelerator. Hold it for a couple seconds, and you're done. The same thing for the ends. Again, the slot goes down, and it will fit right on the inside of your base. It'll be a matter of putting your other side on. It should go on like so. Now for the handle, this is a little bit fragile, so you're going to have to be kind of careful how you do this. Best way to do is to put it in like this, and then bring it up, and just give a little bit of a twist so it flips over the side. And it's a matter of putting a little bit of glue where these fit into the slots, because they fit like so. And I do one side at a time. And again, you do not have to use accelerator. It makes the job go a little bit quicker. So you don't have to hold it very long, and it's there. So here's our basket. Don't forget to put the lid back on your CA glue, because that'll dry out. So from there you can decide on how you want to decorate it, or paint it, or fill it, or do whatever you like. I wouldn't give one of these to a toddler to carry around, because they are a little bit fragile, but they make a fantastic decoration. It would be good for some of the older kids. So again, this project is not as difficult as it looks. It looks extremely difficult, and it is somewhat intricate, but these would make just fantastic gifts for an older child, or if If it is for a toddler, they just wouldn't get to play with it because yeah, a toddler would break one of these pretty easy. But again, as a decoration or for an older child, inexpensive little project. It's easy, but it looks like it took you all kinds of time to do. Again, there'll be a link in the description on where to get the file for this. I did not design this. This design was purchased from designbundles.net. There'll be a link in the description. I'll also put a link in the description for the CA glue I just used. Not sponsored by them either. It's just something we use around here quite a bit. So if you got anything out of this, appreciate getting a thumbs up. Always helps the channel. Roger in the shop. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.